She's 7 years old, and she's got this, an abundance of challenges in her life. She's schizophrenic. She's ADHD, bipolar, epileptic, and Aspergers, which is a form of autism.
The whole concept for MOVE is M, make a difference. O, to offer up your time, talent, and gifts. B, there's victory in the small things. And E, to encourage others. And so I started to move.
Hello, everybody, and thank you again for joining the MOVE podcast. I'm Scotty Carlisle. I'm your host. And sit back, relax, and get ready for an interesting ride. So today, our guest is Jennifer Lorentz. And she has some interesting stories to talk about. She has some interesting energy that I think you're going to experience. And I believe after you listen to this podcast, you're going to be a better person. Maybe not. But listen to it anyway. It'll be interesting. It'll be entertaining. So, how are you, Jennifer?
I am wonderful. Thank you for asking, Scotty.
Yes, and thank you for coming to the show.
Yeah.
That's cool. I think it's cool that you made it a point to come all the way out here into the Carlisle studio. Carlisle Studios for an interesting day of podcasting and cameras and nervousness.
Yes,
right?
Nerves, excitement, same thing.
Oh, so
yeah,
so
different label. My understanding is the body actually reacts the same way when it comes to excitement and nervousness. So if you look at all these things are like firing, and the way we label it, you were just talking about labeling things, your experience. How we label it is how we experience it. So when I walked in here and I said I was nervous, I went, I got to flip the script a little bit. I'm excited. Freaking excited to be here. So
awesome. So what happened? You were telling me there was a couple little interesting things on the way over here that could have made it a lot worse. If
it did make it worse.
Okay.
It did make it. Just kidding. No, it made those nerves, the excitement, go a little bit higher. So as I'm driving over here, I had it all mapped out how to get here. But in the course of my travels, GPS goes out. GPS goes out, and I have no idea how to get here. So I'm thinking, okay, well, I've calculated it accurately of how to get here. So I'm a little bit early, and I'm thinking, oh my goodness. I'm going through my archive of individuals after I thought about calling my husband. If I can't get a hold of my husband, who am I going to get a hold of? How do I get here? Because I have no idea where I'm going. Anyways, I tried to reach my husband. He didn't answer. I was processing things, taking a deep breath, figured it all out, and went, you know what? If I can't get a hold of my husband, I'm going to call you, Scotty. I'll know exactly how to get here. So, yeah.
Where are you coming from?
So, Eastvale, a.k.a. Corona. Same thing, just a different part.
Got it.
Yeah.
But you could be so close, not knowing where you're going, and be very far away.
I've never been in this particular area, so it's just like it was an adventure. It was an adventure, and it was kind of like, ooh, where am I going? What am I doing? So.
Well, how many times are we lost in whatever, and we have all of those same situations, the same nerves, and it always happens when you have somewhere to be or something that's really important. When everything's cool and it doesn't matter, that never happens.
It does not.
But then, you're supposed to be somewhere, then your phone cuts out, then you take the wrong turn, then you get caught up in traffic, and then it is, and I'm sure anybody out there listening can relate to this too. So you might be experiencing one of those things right now while you're listening to this podcast. I heard there's a book called A New Earth by, what's that guy's name? Eckhart Tolle. Have you ever heard of that?
I know who the author is, but I've not read the book.
Got it. That got me into when I started listening to that. I've listened to it for probably, it's been years ago since I started when I first heard it. But he opened my mind to meditation, to not having to be, or to be, not trying to become, but be. I don't know. There's a lot of interesting feedback that I've after I listened to that, in my own mind on, okay, this is what's happening right now. Why is this happening? Oh, it's because my ego is involved. Oh, why do I feel this way? Why am I angry? Oh, this, a pain body that I have inside of me that's looking for some kind of attention that's connected to my ego. I don't want to get too far off into left field, but I just wanted to bring that up because it is not about being lost that troubles you. It is about your thoughts that you need to be found. And that's an interesting distinction. So just like what was happening when you're coming over here and you're like, shit, right? It's yes, nothing bad was happening. You were driving in your comfortable vehicle with your AC on. You weren't hungry. You weren't thirsty. You weren't aching. Your body, everything was perfectly fine.
Absolutely A-okay. I just had no idea where I was going.
Yeah, right.
And which creates uncomfortableness, right?
That's right.
It creates, and what do you do when you're uncomfortable? Sometimes you freaking panic. Sometimes, you stop and you start to think, what is my next step? Your calculated moves. That's what it did. It's like, okay, I could feel the tension rising, right? But so do you spin out of control in that moment? Or do you research and go, okay, wait a second, what's my next step? And if that doesn't work out, what's my next step? And breathe. And freaking breathe.
Yes.
Yeah. And get yourself out of it, right?
It's something so simple. We breathe 23,000 times a day.
Yeah.
But when we're caught up in our mind, we stop breathing. Mm-hmm. We forget about it.
Yeah.
And then there's a lot of repercussions that happen over time when you're not breathing or you're breathing inefficiently. And it helps you become more stressed and a worrywart and everything else. So deep breaths, that's good advice.
It is. It's fantastic, actually. It clears your mind. It slows your heart rate. Research says that it even lowers your blood pressure. When you take those deep, profound, methodical breaths. Because you're breathing constantly. No, you were not stopping breathing, but you stop and you take that deep breath. You hold it and you exhale, I did that right before we got on here. It centers me. It helps me.
It does. It's interesting. If you I got to stop saying that word. There has to be, every time I say the word interesting, I need to pay, we're going to donate $5 to some cause, some charity. I hear myself saying that word and it ticks me off because I know I say it too much.
What other word could you utilize other than interesting? Fascinating?
Interesting is a word that you put in, it's like a filler. When you don't know what to say and you say,
It's the new
It's the new yes.
That's interesting. Just
kidding. That's the truth. So I have to figure out a different word because it requires a little bit more thought. So instead of saying interesting, I can say colorful, or I can say something that relates to whatever the hell I'm saying interesting about.
Yeah.
I'm going to have to write some words down and figure that out. But where I was going with that is that if you are conscious about your breathing, about your breath, when you breathe in and you're thinking about the air passing through your nostrils, or you're taking your awareness and you're putting it on this action is what is happening. The air is coming in through your nostrils into your lungs. Your lungs are expanding. And depending on your level of intellect or attention, you can think of a lot of things that are happening as a result of that breath. When your awareness or your attention is on that breath, you're not thinking about my husband cheated on me, I'm lost, I have gonorrhea, herpes, syphilis, AIDS. You're not thinking about that because your attention is right here.
You're present.
You're present.
You're freaking present, man. How can you think about anything else? You're focused on your breath. It centers you. You're right here, right now. That's it. That's all that matters.
I love it.
Yeah.
But why does it happen when all of us have the same issue? We're thinking about the past. We're thinking about, it's like we're ingrained. We're what's the word I'm looking for? We're programmed to think about the past, to think about the future. And unless we reprogram ourselves, we're going to be caught in Neverland, because back then doesn't matter. And who knows what's going to happen up there. So we do need to be grounded, to be in the present, because that's where we have our full energy, our full attention, our full potential. It's always right now.
Yeah.
But it's just, I think we need reminders of that. So
absolutely. My understanding too is about when you think about the past, right? It can create depression. When you think about the future, it actually, because it's not even here yet, it creates anxiety. So think about what's happening in the world today, right? An abundance of depression, an abundance of freaking anxiety, right? Because we're so there, and we're not here. We're not here. And it's all happening in our noggins, in our brain.
So how do we fix that?
Breathe, man. Breathe. Take deep freaking breaths. That's what we do. Stay present, man. Stay present.
Did you hear that? Are you guys listening right now? Just repeat that. Stay present. Say it. Look at yourself in the mirror while you're saying it. Stay present right now.
Because that's all that matters is right now. That's it.
So speaking of right now, the reason that you came here, it was to talk about, in my opinion, some type of adversity that you faced in life. And, the reason I wanted you to come is because I wanted to capture that attitude, that viewpoint, the way that you're looking at and engaging the issues that you've had in your life. And I think it would be good for people to hear, because who knows, there's, at some point, I don't know how many people are listening right now to this podcast, but at some point there's going to be a lot.
Mm-hmm.
And that's my opinion. I might be a little biased, but the words that you say and the attitude that you take upon life, you personally, Jennifer,
mm-hmm.
I think other people would be listening to this and they can glean some type of joy in a situation that is otherwise affecting them in a negative way. They're hurt, they're sad, they're bummed out, and they can see, there's other things that could happen and the situation could be worse. Or, that's what I wanted to talk to you about, because you have, in my opinion, a good energy, you have a good attitude, and just like a bad attitude, I think a good attitude can be contagious. Mm. So anyway, why do you think I invited you here? What kind of issues have you had in life?
To put me under pressure, first and foremost. I'm just kidding.
Yes.
No.
Right now.
Yeah. I think you must have seen something in me that you would like for me to share to the world, right? And so with that said, when you asked me to be on this particular podcast, which is awesome, I love what you're doing.
Good. So you've heard a couple of the podcasts then?
Yes, absolutely. And so the whole acronym MOVE, I'm like, what? This is freaking fantastic. So M for what? Making a difference, right? O, offering your gifts, your talents, right?
Mm-hmm.
I always say your service, right? That's why we're here on earth in general. So I'm like, okay, Scotty's on to something here. And then V for the small victories. I preach it all the time about the small victories. I opened up my eyes this morning. To me, that's freaking fantastic. If you knew where I came from, right, you would understand. And I hope to be able to get to that point. And then E, encouraging others, right? Like, come on now. Come on. Like, that's why we're here, Scotty. So when you asked me, and I said, you know what, I'm gonna let me think about it, right? I said, let me think about it, and I watched a couple of your podcasts. The first one that I not watched it, sorry, listened to them. The first one that I listened to was the Heavy Cross. And enough said, because that really resonated with me. The story about the heavy cross, when we think that we're carrying something so hard and how, so heavy, and take a look, there's somebody else out there that's worse off, and so be grateful for what's being delivered to you and what you're carrying, So it was a reminder when I listened to that, man. I was just like, okay, I got to be a part of this, Cool. And I think that people are placed in your life for a reason. And so you asking me out of the blue, why wouldn't I say yes? This is an opportunity to share. And my thought process is this: we're here to share love. We're here to share. That's why I was created, So if it's in words, if it's sharing like my experience, by all means, here I am. I want to do that. I want to be a part of it. So.
Awesome. That's pretty damn cool, I have to admit. So I just got a little bit of a did we turn the AC on? I think, to hear the fact that you're picking up what is being put down, as far and the move, just the whole acronym, and move, it implies action, right?
Einstein, it wasn't Einstein said nothing happens until something moves. Nothing happens until something moves. So you doing this, right? You're making a move, man, right? So nothing's going to happen until you make a move, right? So like, I don't know. If nobody does anything, what the heck's going to happen, right? Einstein said it. He was brilliant, mind-blowing, right? So...
Oh, that is funny. And that is the opposite of, I was looking at this word, me and my brother were talking about it, and I couldn't figure it out. When you're talking and there's a word that just escapes you, and you know the word,
yeah.
But at the time we're talking about...
Like, what's that word?
Yes!
What's that word? And you know what I'm talking about, right? And you're like, yeah.
Yeah. But then a day later, it hit me. Inertia. So inertia, we were talking about, it was the opposite of moving, right? When you have inertia and you're sitting still, and in order to overcome the forces of inertia that are keeping you stifled, that are keeping you compressed, that are keeping you limited, right? Which is what we all have in our life in different capacities, but the force it takes to overcome, to create that initial movement is powerful. It's very hard. And so that's why people that are suffering from depression, or especially depression. I think depression is a very horrible scenario. Some people use it as an excuse, and they use the word depression, not the actual act of depression, to manipulate, because they say they're depressed and they're doing it to to elicit some type of reaction out of you. And people do that, yes. However, it is a real thing. It is a true thing. When somebody is depressed, in order to overcome that depression, because it's like you're lost. It's not just, okay, take a step, make a move. Yeah, it's that simple. We know that. But it's not easy. It's not easy to overcome that inertia, to make the move. So I'm trying with everything. What the hell's... So I'm trying with everything that... This should not be upsetting me right now. I'm trying
it
with...
It should, and that's why it is, something that moves you, something that you feel, and that's why you're feeling it. So this is awesome. You're doing so well. I love it. You got this.
So, yeah, I got this. You got this. So, I'm trying with everything that I have, everything that I am, and everything that I want. For myself, for my family, and for others. To overcome the chains that bind you, right? And we all have chains that bind us.
Totally.
And so, and we all need help. Absolutely. Just like you coming over here today, and you're like, and you said earlier, we all need help. We all need somebody to help, And so, and what I have found in my own life is that when you commit and make a conscious effort to be that help, to help somebody get to their destination, get to their potential, that you are doing what the universe, what God wants you to do. And in doing that, there will be blessings. There will be things that will come for you, that will help you, that will help your family, that will make your life better. Whether it's discernment of a problem, whether it's energy, whether it's whatever the hell it is that you're trying to overcome, if you take yourself out of your own shit for a second and you try to adjust it to help somebody else make a difference. So it's not easy, but it's simple. You just move, encapsulate that whole thing.
Yeah.
by taking action, and if you don't know where to take action, it will give you a little beacon of light saying, well, I don't know what to do. Well, how can I make a difference in somebody else's life? Okay, so maybe then you can look around and you can say, hey, maybe there's an old lady that needs help across the street or with their groceries, or maybe my neighbor his yard looks like a pigsty. Maybe I can go mow it for him, or maybe I can give somebody, whatever the hell it is.
Yeah, the questions that you ask yourself are actually very, very important. So how can I be of service to others? How can I help, right? So you ask that question, and you have all those answers inside of you if you just listen. Do you understand? At first, you might not know, because you're like, why is God not talking to me? Why did he not just roll down the scroll and give me a whole little thing, a memo of like exactly? Well, it doesn't work that way. My thought is it's already instilled in us. We just have to quiet ourselves down so we can hear it. You know, how can I help you? Or just asking that question to somebody else, how can I help you? Right? Like,
yeah.
Then they'll tell you.
I mean, look, go to Chick-fil-A. Right?
Yeah.
How awesome everybody goes there and everybody's so happy, and my pleasure from the point you get there. Now, I think of all the years I've been going there, maybe I might have had a bad experience maybe one time but I go there like 3 times a week. I love
Research shows that you go back to a place that you feel welcome at, You will. You could have like the greatest food, but you're not, you had a bad experience, right? Are you going to jump into your car and you're going to go over there real quick? Like, no, you're not. You're going to be like, let me find another place. But when you feel welcome, you're going to come back. You're going to go back. Yeah.
Man, there's a lot of insight in this podcast so far. Even just for me, after we're done, I'm going to rewind. I'm going to listen to the whole damn thing again, because this is good shit.
That's awesome.
But so give me a little story about where you came from, and what is the backstory for Jennifer Lorentz?
Okay, so I was born and raised in a cold, dark night. Oh boy, this is going way back.
Good.
So
we got nothing but time.
Yeah, no, this is cool. This is my opportunity. I'm born and raised in Northern California. So I have brothers. I have 3 older, 1 younger. When I was brought into the world, my 3 older brothers were already here. So my biological father, bounced when I was 2. Okay? So I had a replacement father, right, that wasn't the best, to be quite honest. So my beginning of my life the struggle was real. It really was. So I come from an awful lot of trauma. And for the first 14 years, it was consistent trauma. So my mom, suffered from the same abuse, So she was kind of like a wallflower, And so at the age of 14, I left. I went into the world, and I was going to show, I figured like it can't be any worse than where I came from, right?
Yeah,
14 years old. I'm thinking I know everything, so let me get out there. Let me show them how it's done. And there's no way in heck. You're 14 years old. How in the heck are you going to know anything? So I've scrambled through my life. I've really scrambled through my life. Along with all of those, abuse that I endured, of course, what goes along with abuse. So you go through abuse, all different types of abuse, right? What happens? You abuse yourself, right? For me, substance abuse was something that I reached for because I didn't want to feel anymore. So I've endured that as well, right?
At 14, is that?
14, I wanted to come back home. And in order for me to come back home, one of the prerequisites was I needed to get into a recovery center. So from 14 to 16, I was out on my own. So I needed to come back home because I had no other place to stay. And that was the first recovery center that I ever went into. And only reason I went there was because I needed a place to stay. So let me get through this 30 days, and then I'll be able to go back home. So I wasn't ready at that point. Just going through the motions of things, right? How do you know Jack Diddley Squat at such a young age? You don't know anything. Heck, I'm still learning now, right? Okay, going back. So I did that. I got back home and realized I didn't really want to be there. So I decided to venture into a relationship with somebody that was older than me and get out of the house again. And that propelled a whole lot of negativity. And so for the next 5 years, I found myself, because this is what happens. So when you are not given all the structure, the handbook, the everything, all that stuff that builds you, right? You try to figure out things for yourself. And that's what I've had to do. I've had to figure stuff out on my own. So coming from an abusive background, what the heck? Okay, and then go ahead and, do drugs, alcohol, that stuff. Let me venture into a relationship. That's not, how would I know, man?
Right.
I just figured the person was older, they should know better, right?
How much older?
11 years older than myself.
Oh, at 16?
At that point it was 17, because I just had turned 17 years old.
Okay, 28. So that's a big difference.
11 years older than myself. Figured the person knew. Treated me like a queen. Great and wonderful, but that changed as soon as I moved in. When I moved in, I found myself in the same kind of abusive relationship of where I came from. You find what you're familiar with, right? So I made my bed. I had to lie in it, so to speak, because I didn't want to tell anybody, what was really, really going on. So I endured it. I endured it in silence until I could.
Wildflower.
Yeah, kind of strange, right? It's not really strange. It's not really strange because that's the whole dynamics of it all, right? So with that said, 5 years I stayed in that relationship, and then I bounced. I realized, oh my gosh, actually what had happened too was I developed an eating disorder at that time too. Something that I can control. It's just how it worked. It's just like one thing to after another. And so I had started seeing a counselor for that. And one of the things that she told me was this. She said, Jennifer, there's no such thing as a victim in this particular case, only a volunteer. And I thought that was freaking harsh, man. I thought, what are you talking about? I'm volunteering myself to be in this kind. And in essence, it kind of was valid. And I think that's probably why it jolted me, because I remember her saying that, and it was the first time that I recall knowing that I had a choice. Because I figured things that just came at me, that's just how it was.
That's life.
That's just life. That's just how it was, right? But when she said that, it struck me. It struck me hard. And so when I heard that and it resonated in me, I let it simmer. I let it marinate, actually, for quite some time. And I realized, you know what? I'm in a bad way here. I'm in a bad relationship. This is not what I want. This is not what I deserve. It's not what I want. I'm more than this, man. I am. And so I packed up my stuff and I called my brother and he helped. Everything was in garbage bags and I went back home. At that point, my mom and my stepdad had split up. So it was just my mom. So I ended up going back home, My life started to change then too. I think with being armed with just a smidgen of hope and the fact of knowing that I had choices, right?
Right.
It's like you go, oh, this is not how it's been, but this is what's happening, and this is what I just did, Anyways. So going through all those trials and tribulations, so I'm in my 20s now, and I'm back at home with my mom, and I'm working and stuff like that. Things don't just all of a sudden go back to normal. Like, you're not automatically healed. Like, oh, I made a choice and now I'm healed, right? Like, okay, now I'm empowered now, and it wasn't like that for me. In fact, there were many lessons that came my way, and it was trying to figure out who the heck I was. Who am I? Because we talked earlier about the software that's downloaded in us, right?
Yep.
So feeling not good enough. Why would I feel good enough? Right? I had somebody, beating on me every day, right? Why would I I beat myself up at times. Why would I feel good enough? Why would I feel worthy? Okay, I didn't feel any of that stuff, right? So it's all fighting my way through, crawling through to try to figure out who Jennifer is, right? So when I went back home, I was in my 20s. Hello, and I'm free. I'm not even in a relationship. This is the first time, like, whoa, and of course, I got myself in some trouble. Started, using again. Started to, like, this is my only thing I knew what to do. That's what you do. You go out, you party. That's what you do, right?
Yep.
It wasn't much longer that I figured out, wait, when I do this, a whole lot of bad things kind of connect to that, right? They happen because of it. So it was the first time I decided to put myself in recovery.
Wow.
And I did it. I made that choice. I chose to embrace the abundance of information that was coming my way, even though I didn't understand half the shit they were saying, right? I wanted to open up my ears. I opened up my heart. I did whatever I could to try to absorb. I wanted a different way. I wanted a different way. I wanted a different life. Do you understand? So took it all in. Took it all in. Graduated from that thing. Stayed sober, right? Stayed sober. Soon after, I ended up meeting my husband. And so we've been married for 23 years now.
Wow.
Yeah, so it's interesting, too. This is crazy because, statistics will say, look where you come from, blah, 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 marriage, it's like you're prone for divorce and blah, blah. Healthiest relationship I've ever had.
Wow.
Healthiest relationship. Now, I wasn't always healthy because I was still growing up.
Yeah.
He's always been my rock, though. And so I ended up getting married, like I was 27. God, don't quote me on this stuff, man. So anyways, getting married. And even though I told him, from the get-go, listen, I'm not the marrying type, because I always felt like, okay, I'm not good enough for that nonsense, right? I didn't have those dreams and aspirations to be married. In fact, my thought process was, I need to get through today. I need to survive today. That's it. That was my any imagination. Remember I was talking about your creativity, Scotty? I was talking about that stuff, like you didn't have those. Mine were squashed. I wasn't allowed to dream. I wasn't allowed to any of that stuff. I'm like, I need to breathe. That's it, right? So I didn't have that stuff. You get it?
Yeah.
Whatever. That was what was delivered to me. Okay. I wasn't responsible for that, but there comes a point where you're responsible for your life, especially when you're no longer there. Get it? And I understood that. So prior to getting married to my husband, I told him, I'm not the marrying type. No expectation, no obligation. And a year later, I was freaking married. A year later. Yeah. Because of my tumultuous and traumatic background, I absolutely love kids, right? However, because of what I endured, I never wanted my children to ever have to experience that. Yeah. And so the only way that I could ever make that happen is by not having kids, is way I thought, that's what I thought. That's how significant the trauma that I endured happened to me.
Wow. Yeah.
To make a decision like that. And I stuck with it. This is the fact. Okay, I'm telling you this stuff for a reason, right? I'm telling you for a reason. So move a little bit forward. My husband gets an opportunity because, like I mentioned before, we're from Northern California. He had an opportunity to do some troubleshooting here in Southern California. So he says, what do you think, Jen? I mean, we're both, we went to grade school together, believe it or not. Cool. Yeah, it's really awesome. He was best all around, and I was class clown. So we're complete opposites. Anyhow, he says, well, what do you think? Can we go over there, just go check it out? And I said, sure, like temporarily, like it's kind of scary going from, because we were like, I always considered myself like a big fish in a small pond. And then when I came over to Southern California, it was like I'm a little fish in a big pond. There's a lot of stuff. Yeah. We get here, we do some troubleshooting, and we've been here ever since. Okay? We've been here ever since. I work with him, and we took this like smaller company and made it a lot bigger. Okay, my main thing was to just work. We just worked. Moved away from all of our families, right? And our focus was just working so that we can put money away, make a better life. That's the thing. You have to be successful.
American dream.
Right? You have to be successful in life. Dang it. You got to make the money, right? Whatever. That's how we did. We were focusing on. Well, during that time that we were just focused on work, my mom, she got sick. Back at home, she got sick. In fact, she had tuberculosis. Okay. She got tuberculosis. She almost died. So a little history. I told you I had 3 older brothers, 1 younger brother. My youngest brother had a daughter. Her name is E.M.D.R. She has an awful lot of extra challenges in life. My mom adopted my niece when she was 11 months old. Okay? So my mom was the sole guardian to my niece with these extra challenges. Got it?
Got it.
So, when my mom fell ill, there was no one to take care of Star. At that time, she was 7 years old. And my mom was in such a bad way that I had to fly back home. We had a meeting with my brothers to kind of discuss what's going to happen when she passes away. That's how bad her tuberculosis was. In having that conversation, we also had the conversation of like, what are we going to do with Star?
Right.
She's 7 years old, and she's got this, an abundance of challenges in her life. She's schizophrenic. She's ADHD, bipolar, epileptic, and Aspergers, which is a form of autism, right? So everybody goes around, it's like the oldest, well, I'm not having kids, so I can't take care of her, The second one, he's not going to he's got his own set of, and
issues.
Yeah, issues. And my third brother, he's got kids of his own, and Star, she's a whole lot of work. My youngest brother, who's the father, was involved in, drugs and stuff like that. Was given another opportunity to be a dad, but he wasn't ready. He wasn't ready at that time. So it came to me. Well, as I had mentioned in the story previously, I said I didn't want to have kids because of what had gone on in my life, right? So why is everybody looking at me? You know what I'm saying? Like, why am I no? I'm like, no, that's not in the stars for me, right? To care for someone else, like whatever. So I'm like, no. So we all of us said no. We asked extended family, we asked family friends if they would take care of Star, and everybody said no. It's time for me to fly home. Right? So I'm like, okay, we figured out what we're going to do with my mom. We figured out, I guess the end result is that Star's going to go to foster care. And so there's nowhere else she's going to go, So fine, I guess that's what has to happen is what I thought, So we go home. We unpack, right? Meaning I came back here to Southern California, I unpack. It's time for me to go to bed. I put my head on my pillow, and as I lay my head on my pillow, I hear this voice that says, you cannot let Star go to foster care. But the thing is, it wasn't my voice.
Oh, wow.
It was a voice, but it wasn't my voice, right? And I'm thinking, what on earth? Like, that's weird, right? Like, that's kind of strange. Like, how am I hearing this voice? And then I heard it again. I heard it again, very, very, very clear. And I tap my husband on the shoulder and I say, hey. And he's like, yeah. And I said, we need to go get Star. And he goes, what?
That sounded
like what?
random.
Like, yeah, like, wait a second. We just said no, and we discussed it. What do you mean you want to go get Star? And I said, I can't let her go to foster care, man. He says, are you sure this is what you want to do? We work all the time, Jen. I thought you didn't want to have kids. You don't know if your mom's going to get better, And I said, yeah, I know, but I got to. I heard this voice. I have to. So we did. We got into the car. I called my oldest brother. And I said, hey, don't take her to foster care. I'm going to take her. He went, what? You know, of all people. Wow. Because I think all my family knew I was never going to be, you know, like a parent to, that wasn't in the stars for me. But, you know, I think sometimes there's somebody else pulling the strings, which is, you know, God. I mean, for me, it's God, right? So we go and we pick up Star, and I brought her home, you know, and when I brought her home, I'm thinking, oh my gosh, how am I going to do this?
And how old was she at the time?
At that time, she was 7 years old.
Wow.
Yeah.
And already diagnosed with
diagnosed with all those things. I think the
Yeah.
Asperger's wasn't as much until later down the line, but form of autism, you know, it was just diagnosis Asperger's later down the line. But anyways, long story. You asked the story,
I did,
man.
and
You
I'm
asked
so glad
the
I
story
did.
because and there's a lot, and I'm trying to condense it. But just to give you a little insight about where I come from, right? Because you're talking about adversities and what have you. And boy, I got lots of them.
Open that can of worms.
Listen, yeah, I got a lot of them. And you know what's crazy is like most people would have no idea.
Right.
They don't.
Just see bubbly, you're happy.
Do.
Yeah,
they
woo.
do. And it's valid. My happiness is valid because of where I come from and what I've endured. So I can appreciate, you know, the days that come my way. Right? Like this moment right now. I was like, freaking so cool. Okay. So anyways, Star comes back with me. She's there. And now I am the guardian to Star Taylor Haley. And I am doing whatever I did so much research on each and every one of her diagnoses. I mean, she was, when I got her, she had like 8 different medications. So she was drooling, you know, and I'm thinking, how in the heck? Like, I'm not an advocate of like medication, you know, it's like, it's just not, I understand that people need it at times, but sometimes I think, people are overly medicated. Sometimes children are overly medicated, and it's not for the children's sake. It's for the other person's sake so that they can handle them, right?
Absolutely.
And for me, it was a no-brainer. Like, let me figure out, you know, what it is that she needs. And little by little, I figured out, like, what she needed, you know, and what would work, and talking with the doctor and stuff like that. And she needed structure, and she needed a whole lot of love too. And believe it or not, I was the one to give it to her, right? Okay, so right, like it's just wild. I didn't realize it then. So me focusing on her, giving her, took me out of me, right? She became like, okay, this is, you know, it's like a sense of responsibility. You know, I'm here. There's a reason. There's a purpose that I'm here. Most people will say, man, your niece is so lucky to have you. And I always turn around and go, no, I'm super lucky to have her because she gave me a purpose, right? Purpose. And help me out. Anyways, my mom, she got better. She lived. My mom lived, right? Through that she had part of her lung removed. It took her years to recover. In fact, she gets out of the hospital. She goes and stays with my brother, Phil. And Phil could only get her to a certain, you know, stage of life. You know, it's like she was recovering, but she wasn't recovering to where she was able to, like, do things for herself all the time. You know, my mom... Right. Is an independent woman. Was an independent woman, and always doing for herself, you know, in spite of all her trials and tribulations, man. You know, so, but my brother Phil says, Jen, I can only get her so far, and I said, well, bring her on down here. Oh, come to camp, Jen. You know, and because the overall objective was to get Star and my mom back together, and that's exactly what happened. So, my mom comes down, stays with me, get her back on. As soon as she walked through the door, she was in her walker, and I was like, you're not going to need that. You're not going to need that. And she's like, okay, you know, because she didn't need it. She
Wow.
didn't need it.
Wow.
That's how, like, and she didn't. So anyways, they get back together. I didn't anticipate how hard it would be to, because I had invested so much with Star, right? To let her go.
Right.
You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Like, I didn't know, like, I didn't know until that time came. And then I'm like, okay, well, this is what the thing was. This is what you were supposed to do. So you know, just from the sidelines, Jen, from the sidelines, you know, just watch and be there for her, you know. And my mom was still like, she comes from the old school, right? Like her form of raising is just a different thought, you know, process of it. I was pretty structured with Star and a routine. That's what she needed. Yeah. I figured it out. I had like the concoction, you know? So, unfortunately, when they got back together, things started to unravel. At this point, Star was like 13. So she's already, you know, teenage, you know, going all through all the crazy stuff. So you've had her
for like 6 years.
Yeah. So at that point, she's like 13 years old, different time, right? Her getting, you know, back with my mom and stuff, was traumatic for her. And it came out in different ways. So she acted out an awful lot, to the point where she ended up hitting my mom. And when she did that, she ended up getting arrested.
Oh, man. At 13?
At a young, Well, at that point, it was like 14. It was like 14. Dope. And they put her in juvenile hall. And realized soon, you know, after that, she shouldn't be there because of all of her challenges, mental development challenges and stuff like that. So the judge had said, you know, well, she can serve the rest of her time at a behavior facility, but it was in Colorado. So she ends up getting shipped away. So
she had to go. Nobody lives in Colorado. It was just this facility, and that was the judgment. Yes. So she goes, and she's there, and so she's there for a few years. We stayed in touch with her. As soon as she turned 18 years old, though, you know, the system it's a done deal. 18 years old, her insurance ran out, all that stuff. It's okay, get out into the world. You're on your own.
Well, think about this. So she's 14 to 18, there's 4 years right there where she is just being housed, basically. There's not an awful lot of instilling much of anything. Now you're 18 years old, you're an adult, get out kind of thing. Mm-hmm. So where's she going to go? She can't go back with my mom, right? Because that relationship was kind of tumultuous and it just wasn't the best setting for her. So, oh my God, here we go again. Let's go and talk to all the brothers and let's see if there's somebody else that would be willing to assume the responsibility. And at 18 years old, now she's bigger. She's stronger.
Smarter.
She's smarter. She's right, all this stuff, right? So she, nobody, you know, wants her kind of thing. Nobody wants her. And it comes down to me. And I'm like, bring her on over. I open up bring her on over. I don't care. Bring her on over. So, she's been with me. She's going to be turning 24 June 2nd. And she's pretty amazing. So, check this out. Last week, it's not last week, it's been many, many times. So she's actually an example and a reminder of the things that we all take for granted. So check this out. She's been given a set of circumstances, right? Dealt this hand, right? Dad not there, mom not there, and then here you go. Let's start because we're all. I don't like to use the special needs because I think we're all special needs. You have a set of. I have special needs. You have everybody has a special. So I like to say she's got extra challenges because we all have challenges too, right? Right. She's got an extra little thrown. You know, some rough ones too. But you know, check this out. I've never, well, maybe like once, have I heard her complain about her life.
Interesting.
I have not heard her complain about her life. I come across a lot of people who take things for granted, and they're consistently, right, complaining about their lives. And I hear them, and I understand, because we all have our struggles. Like I often think, like, man, about my own self and the things that I've endured, nobody knows, and things that, and how grateful I am, right? But we can even from time to time, I need a reminder of not to take things for granted, right? Here she is. She's the example to me. She's my own home. So I'm watching her, and I don't know why. I just thought about it, and I was like, wow, man, she doesn't, man, we take things for granted all the time, just take our five senses, right? So we get to taste, see, hear, right? We get these like, what is it? Taste, see, hear, smell, and touch, right? Those five things that we take it for granted, but it's a freaking gift. It's a gift that we get to do that, right? So I do a workshop. On every Wednesday. I was gifted with the opportunity to, I work at a treatment center also. So it's called Akasha Treatment Center. And trippy, right? Because look at where it came from. Here I am, being of service to a group of individuals who are struggling. And it's crazy because sometimes when I'm doing these workshops, I walk away feeling like I get more out of it. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
It's a trick. When you're giving from your heart, it's so meaningful. It's so freaking meaningful. Okay, so my workshop, the reason I'm telling you is because my workshop this past Wednesday was, where are we at? Today's Thursday. So yesterday.
Yesterday.
Had to do, Star, my niece, was the one that propelled my workshop, and it was about taking things for granted, and how she doesn't complain each day that she goes through life. She's so present. She wakes up in the morning, and it's like a brand new freaking day. It's what we aspire to do. We're talking about, being present, right? How do we do that? She just freaking does it. She doesn't even meditate, man. She just exists. I'm given her to remind me just exist and be, right? So my workshop yesterday was about, what if, taking things for granted, what if you didn't have your sight? What if you didn't have your senses, how would you feel? So it was funny because I took a bunch of like goggles and I blacked them out and I gave them to all the clients. I had them choose from a bucket because people aren't given choice when something's taken away from them, right? They're not, it's just how it is. So I had them choose like, it was either sight or sound. And so based off of what they chose is what it was taken away. It was taken away. And so the idea was just so that they could understand to be grateful for what you have, right? Not to take things for granted. And it was all because of Star, So I don't know.
The poignant things in life that we think is this, and we think we're helping, but in reality, it's flipped.
Yeah, without a doubt. So, I don't know. Just stuff like that. What enabled me to get through all of these things? I think that having Star in my life, wanting to be, to find out who I was, figuring out who I am, and working on it consistently. I'm not there. I'm not arrived. I'm not like, I'm always trying to be, I'm a human being trying to be better each day. And then also sharing myself with others, that's it. That's my thing. That's my thing. And whatever capacity that comes, my way, that's what I do. And I'm 50. Just turned 50, March 23rd. And it's like, life has just zoomed by. I come with so much like like a lot of experience through life and stuff. I'm just experiencing stuff now on a different level. It's like we get to go, like a video game. So you go through the next level. The next level. Up. Yeah. So that's what I feel like, being aware, being mindful, wanting to evolve, right? Making that decision to do so, and just doing it and moving to do that. That's how to get through stuff.
There was a thing I heard there's a guy named E.M.D.R, and he worked with a bunch of world-class athletes, world champions, like 17 different world champions. And I brought this up on a couple of different podcasts, I think. Tim Ferriss is my favorite podcast. He's badass. And he interviews people that have made it to world-class level. And he interviews this guy, E.M.D.R. And that interview, I'm reminded, it really made a profound impact on me. That one interview, a bunch of other ones too, but especially that one. But he talks about a couple of things about affirmations. But one of the things that got me listening and thinking about what he was saying is the idea that I've always thought time is our most precious and valuable resource.
Absolutely.
That is exactly what I thought before listening to this. But he flips the script. He says, yes, time is very valuable and it's a limited resource. There's no doubt about it. However, it was his opinion that it's not time. It's energy. Because we have a finite amount of energy. And if we can bring energy, look at Bruce Lee, another one of my heroes. He died at 32. I was a year old. And the repercussions from that man is still carrying forward like a tidal wave. He has made such a profound impact on so many people. And in my opinion, looking at that, knowing what I know now, it was because it was the way he was able to capture his energy and put it forward into the universe, into the world. And I mean, if you think about it, and you're studying, an easy example, you're studying algebra, and you're tired, and you're stressed, and you're hungry, and you could be sitting at the table for 5 hours and nothing computes. The same thing, you're bright-eyed, bushy-tailed, you woke up and you're happy, right? And you have a bunch of energy, and you're looking at it, and you're able to absorb it. And you could probably learn the same thing in about 5 minutes, 10 minutes, 15 minutes, whatever it is. So it's just something to chew on. It's not a finite answer of the universe.
Yeah.
However, it's a different perspective that opened my eye to really think about, a lot of what in depression, in order to overcome the inertia, we need energy.
Yeah.
And we need extra energy to overcome our barriers and our boundaries. So you have been going to the gym. I've seen you there from before COVID. And now what things do you do to help harness your energy, to help bring your energy up and,
Bring it up? Because I have an awful lot. Keep it up. So to keep it up, that's a good way, because I think we have an abundance of energy. For me, I know for a fact I have an abundance of energy. So I think that eating well, nurturing myself, right?
What does eating well mean?
Eating well for me is picking and choosing foods that nourish my body. What is that? That's called vegetables, fruit, and I do eat protein. I do eat meat too, right? And I drink an awful lot of water. That's what works for me. Yeah, so I nurture my body.
How many times do you eat? Do you eat a lot of times during the day, or does it not really matter?
It's varied, but I definitely have 3 meals without a doubt, with some snacks. So nourishing my body. That's just with eating. So I also nourish myself by sleeping. Most people prioritize, their day, but they never prioritize their sleep. And sleep for me is, because I come from the old school, like, you're going to get enough sleep when you die, you right, kind of thing. And there's only so many hours in the day, so you got to get it all done. It's like, whatever, man. So energy, you're saying how to harness that energy, how to maintain it, right? By sleeping. That's another one.
How many hours of sleep do you
So
normally get?
now is about 7.5 hours of sleep. So I wanted to go back to something really quick too.
Yep.
Because before I wasn't getting as much sleep. I want to hit on something really quick before we move forward, because I think it's extremely important, because I want to tell you, life still happens, right? Life still happens. So a few years back, my mom wasn't doing the best. So I had her come live with me again, I had her come live with me. And I told her, you don't have to worry about anything anymore. I can handle things for you, So it's all good. And she welcomed it. Yeah. And so it was great. So last few years, she stayed with me. And so through this whole COVID thing also, she managed to get, through it. She didn't catch COVID, man. My mom has so many different ailments, so many different, I had to take her to dialysis Monday, Wednesday, Fridays. So she had bad kidneys. She wasn't eating, she made a lot of bad decisions in her life. It affected her physically. She overcame cancer. She had, breast cancer at one point too. So lots of stuff. Anyways, this past November, my mom passed away. Passed away. November 25th, the day before Thanksgiving.
Oh, man.
So this is not too long ago. Mother's Day is coming up. Mother's Day is coming up on Sunday. So trials and tribulations still happen, right? Although I've had so many experiences in my life, right? I was not prepared for grief. I wasn't prepared for grief. You don't know until you know. We're all taught different things, right? We talk about when you're sad, you do this. When you're depressed, you do this. When you're feeling anxious, you do this. You breathe, you do it. But who talks about grief, man? Who talks about grief? Typically when somebody's going through grief, people don't know what to do. Or they say the same thing, that, sorry for your loss, but
everything's going to be okay.
Everything's going to be okay, blah, 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 right? And with great intention, don't get me wrong, but it doesn't make it better. Grief for me stopped me in my tracks. I did not anticipate the intensity of losing my mom, what that would feel like, grief, to the point where I felt disconnected from my own body. So disconnected from my own body. Don't know which way is up. Get it?
Yeah. Now, was that when you first found out, or is it like a continual chronic situation?
So what happened was this. Let me take you back to what happened. My mom fell at my house. My mom fell, hit her head, and when she hit her head, she hit pretty hard. So had to call paramedics, and she ended up going to the hospital, and they determined her, that this is too much trauma to her brain, and we had to make that decision to let her go. So I had to make that decision it was a week, if I had my brothers come down, we made that decision. She went into hospice, and, walked her through. It was there till she took her last breath. Very, very traumatic situation that happened not too long ago. We're talking November, and where are we at right now? This is something. So in the midst, so the reason I'm telling you this is because I'm going through stuff, but you still have to move. You still got to go. So when it happened, when all that happened, and she passed away, and her funeral and all that stuff, is when I felt that disconnected. Finally, when the funeral, it was like I felt she's gone. The disconnection of it all, of my own body, and I had to figure out what was going to help me get out of this debilitated feeling So I had to reach out to an old therapist, and I knew enough because nobody else was going to help me. You have to know what to do in order to help yourself get out of situations, right? You just do. And for me, for some reason, based off of what I had gone through before, traumatic situations, and I had PTSD from that, right? I knew that I should reach out to my therapist, and I did. He does this thing called E.M.D.R. Have you ever heard of it?
Is it where you take yourself and experience something that from
all
the
over
past?
again? Yeah, all over again. Because most people,
and then it gives you a way of using that same experience, but taking a stair step out of being able to get out of that.
It's basically most people who go through traumatic situations, right? The trauma sits in your body, yeah? And then you don't want to think about it. You don't want to have to go through that, so you stop yourself, right, from feeling that. What E.M.D.R. is, it walks you through that. The very thing that you're trying to run from, you're actually going back. It's almost worse than...
Yeah.
It's very hardcore.
Facing it head on.
It is facing it head on. And that's what I had to do in order to get at least myself connected back to my body, right? With my mom's passing and stuff like that. But to say that oh, I went and did that, now I feel great. Like, no, listen, man, I'm still dealing with stuff, but you still have to keep moving because life is still happening. In the midst of it all, here I am with you. You see? Yep. It's like things come your way, things come my way, things will always happen, hurt will always happen, right? Because we're here on earth. Mm-hmm. You just have to keep moving through it. That's all. Just keep moving through it. So one of the things, the reason I'm telling you this is because you asked me about what do I do? Keep my energy up. How do I? I do a lot of things, man. So going to the gym. Most people think, well, it's for aesthetic purposes, right? And I go, no. It's not just for aesthetic purposes. That's the outcome of it all. But that energy, right, that I sometimes have an abundance of, I have to work out. And I work out, and it helps my mind, too. You know, it creates endorphins, and, sometimes it clears my mind a little bit. And I'm doing something good physically for my body. Right?
That's right.
To elevate myself. So, physical, sleeping, eating well. You think that's it? That's not it, man. What you feed your mind. What you feed your mind, too. Are you around a bunch of people that are low, sad, do you know what you need in order to feed your reading? I read. Sometimes talk about meditation. Mm-hmm. So meditation too. I just sit there and at first 15. So wake up at 3 o'clock in the morning. Every freaking morning. 3 o'clock in the morning, first 15 minutes, I say gratitude. I think about everything I'm freaking
now really fast. The 3 o'clock in the morning thing, that's self-inflicted, or did you before already wake up at that time and now you're trying to
self-inflicted? It's now becomes habitual. Initially, it was because of my mom and taking her to dialysis at 4 o'clock in the morning. Mm. In addition to that, going to the gym early at 5 o'clock in the morning, I need to get up early too, right? So it just it all kind of goes together. So self-inflicted, it's by choice, yeah. Yeah. It's by choice. 3 o'clock in the morning, first 15 minutes, I'm grateful that I even opened my freaking eyes, man. So that's that, right? So giving gratitude, right? Keep my mind right. Thank you for it's like the small things that are big things for me, man. So like your victory, right? Mm-hmm. The little small victories and stuff, like open up my eyes, feeling I get to do this again, man. I get to live here again. There's a moment in my life where I didn't know if I was going to live the next day. That's how I came into the world, too, consistently. It wasn't like, that's just how it was. That's just how it was. But So 15 minutes. And then the next 15 minutes, so it's 3 o'clock, wake up, boom. Okay, gratitude. Oh, thank you for waking me up. Thank you for, thank you for this opportunity. I thought about you today because, of course, I'm going to be here, right? Because I said I'm going to be here. So I'm here. Then the next 15 minutes is sitting there and just watching the thoughts go by that are in my head. And thinking and watching, and 15 minutes of just silence. Everybody else is asleep. The world is sleeping at that point,
Yeah.
And I take those 15 minutes of like meditation. So it's for my brain. It's for my mind to clear it, to center, And then I get started with the day, man, and it's gone before you know it.
Isn't it?
Yeah.
And then the week.
Yeah.
And then the month.
Yeah. And you find yourself 50 years old, like, what the?
When did this happen?
Yeah, no, it's true. It's true.
Yeah, and now Star's 20.
She's going to be 24 on June 2nd. She's going to be 24 on June 2nd, so.
So my little brother, Tori, who passed away, and that's the point of I don't have anything, the Unsung Hero Foundation. So June 2nd is a very important day, It's a very important day. And my little brother represented a lot. So it's I don't know what the significance of that day, but
June 2nd for you, you're saying is a significant day?
It is because that was my brother's birthday. My brother passed away. So he passed away at 27, and I had this speech. I was doing Toastmasters, and I had this speech called My Unsung Heroes. And it was about growing up, Bruce Lee, because he was a badass.
Yeah.
David Copperfield, because he could make shit disappear.
Well, sure.
Yeah, he's cool. And Greg Louganis, because at the time I lived in Wilcox, a one-stoplight town. All there was to do, basically, was a pool. And there was a low board and a high board. And I loved going and doing flips off the diving board. And at 10 years old, I would do stuff that no lifeguards would try. I'd put a shirt on, and then, because I had big brothers that were always like, hey, go do this. And stupid, it's like, I'd go do it, and I didn't die, and it was okay.
Oh, yeah.
So it gave me the ability to try stuff, right? So anyway, growing up, those were my heroes. Well, at some point, you look back, and you're like, well, who are the real important people in my life, right? That's cool to have heroes there, but who are the real heroes? And so they're the unsung heroes.
Yeah.
And that was my dad, who represented toughness because he had a bunch of shit that happened to him, and from the heavy crosses, right? I talk about some of the crosses that he had to bear. My wrestling coach, because in high school I had some adversity myself, and had a lot of energy, sometimes directed it in the wrong spot.
Yeah.
And he was there to help me, to kick me in the ass and say, no, son, you don't have to do that. You could do this. You could use your powers for good, that kind of stuff. And helped me, and basically had a pretty tight collar because I was in wrestling, and I was in football, and I was in track, because he coached all of those. And he could be there to help. Pretty much. And my little brother, he was an unsung hero because he represented hope. He went, and pretty much he had a horrible situation when he was young. He was molested. He was abused by a family member, a cousin. When I was in the military, and by the time I had found out, the guy was in prison already, and that's when my mom told me, because she knows my demeanor and, my little brother. And so it was bad, but growing up, he had a lot of anger issues, and he acted out in a lot of really bad ways. I mean, crime, drugs, violence, just whatever you can imagine, he did. And he did it with 2 middle fingers up to everybody, because screw everybody, Yeah. And so he had overdoses, a couple of overdoses he got on just everything. But at some point, he did turn his life around. He was able to overcome, actually was able to join the military, became a productive member of society, and got married, and did it. He was doing it, man. He was doing it. He was good. And in the Army, he had a couple people that he was close to that got killed, got blown up in different ways. And so he was struggling now in a different way. He got out of the military. But the speech, sorry, I got lost. The speech was, he represented hope. So he was an unsung hero to me. And my message of that speech was saying, hey, if you have somebody that impacted your life profoundly, go tell them. Because they may be suffering from depression. They may be struggling with something. And your comment to them, your whatever that is, saying, hey, you know what? You helped me. And I thank you for that. Could mean a lot to them. And if you're depressed, there's probably somebody like me that hasn't told you how important that you were. But you were, and they do believe that, but they just didn't tell you. Yeah. Just like I didn't tell my coach. I didn't tell my dad. I didn't tell my brother. And so after that, now he was alive at the time when I was doing the speech. And I always knew he always looked up to me because I was his big brother. But I didn't tell him, it's one of those things. He's gone. So you're never going to get to say I love you again. You're never going to get to have any of those conversations. Mm-hmm. And it was very traumatic. So I understand, I haven't lost my mom. I lost my dad. I lost my brother. I lost one of my brothers, my best friend, another thing. So I get it. I understand. I know that feeling. And so I started the Unsung Hero Foundation because it was my way of coping. It was my way of taking. So when he passed away, it was like, oh my God, I have this speech. I'm telling people, and I didn't even listen to my own damn advice. Like, you idiot! What the hell's wrong with you? Why could you have not? Maybe you telling him could have made him feel better. Maybe it could have helped the situation. Maybe, who freaking knows? But we beat ourselves up in a lot of different ways, and that was me. So my liberation was to create the My Unsung Hero Foundation and find people and do what's called the TLC Award. His name's Tori Lee Carlisle, TLC. 10 to 11 care as well. And so I've done things with that organization where I've found people that have overcome some kind of adversities, and then I will do a TLC award where I will basically find something that they're into, that they like or whatever, and I'll create this experience that they can't pay back. They can't say, it's just something out of love and out of reverence.
It's your brother.
For my brother.
Yeah.
And that helps. Awesome. And that helps.
Yeah.
So anyway, that's where, and again, you have to move so it all comes back. It's all included in the package, right?
Yeah.
So I didn't know all of that stuff about your story.
Isn't it amazing? So you take a moment. You don't realize that people have stories. You take a moment because we all have this like preconceived notion of people based off of their exterior.
Yes.
Right?
Absolutely.
So you see a person, you're like, oh, you see their mood. But my mood is by choice. I choose to look at things in a certain way. I could let my whole life, my story, my experiences, I could be another statistic where I allowed, this is what happened to me. I'm not stuck there, man. I choose to be better. I choose to make a better life. I choose to share love. In spite of everything that was delivered to me, some people say, well, this is what happened. How would I know any different? Well, when you can know different if you want to know different. You can be better if you want to be better. And it's just starting. Like, listen, we can beat ourselves up, right? Well, I did this. And mistakes happen, so you can learn. Dude, like that's just how it is. I don't. Anybody who has a story, who am I to judge? Like, you know what I'm saying? Like, come on, man. Look, you guys knew where I came from. Hello, I came from the pits of, and but it's choice, man. It's choice. We're here for a small amount of time. What are you gonna do? Well, I see what you're doing, man. I see what you're doing. You're making a difference, right? You guys have this podcast. It's freaking fantastic. You're doing something. You're not talking about it. You're being about it. you know? That's why I said I couldn't help but want to be a part of it, you know?
Awesome.
Because it's fantastic. That's why I said that's why we're created. I didn't know that throughout my whole life, you know, of knowing like, okay, we're here to share ourselves with one another. We can't do it alone. We're all connected too. Did you know that? We're all freaking connected, which is weird, is because we do so much to go like, nah, that's him. That's it. That's not me. That's it. You know what I'm saying? Like, disconnecting. Like, no, that's just that. No. We are connected because even with Einstein said with that little saying, you know, because it's a vibration. It's vibration. So with that movement, something becomes something. You know, it's all connected. It's okay. So we're connected, man.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
Man, you can go down a rabbit hole with that.
Yeah.
But here's what's interesting. That's 2 more, so that's $10 that I'm gonna have to donate.
Interesting.
Yeah,
but it is
okay.
interesting. Not joking.
That's true.
Yeah.
I guess there may be sometimes that you can use that. So the story that I remembered was the story about your brother. Now, this podcast has been an amazing podcast.
Yeah.
Like, I'm excited and super ecstatic about what has gone down today, but not a damn word has been discussed about your brother. It was everything else, and I thought that, you know,
Which the youngest one?
yeah, his story about going to jail and what had happened in, you know, with the car, that craziness. You know?
Yeah. So he was being under the influence and stealing a vehicle and running from the police. That story?
Yes,
is that the story that you're talking about?
That is the story I'm talking
There's many
about.
stories. There's many stories, but that particular one, my youngest brother, Daryl, he was the father of Star.
Dad, yeah.
Yes. He has struggled with many demons and, you know, substance abuse and what have you. His last hurrah, he opted to steal a vehicle. When he stole the vehicle, the police were after him, of course. Well, that particular day, a anchor from a newscast was going on a ride along with the police officer that just so happened to be chasing my brother. So she took her camera and started filming it all. Of course, it was put on the news, and it was kind of like, I don't know if it was a live feed or whatever, but it was on the news that here's this person, you know, who stole a vehicle under the influence, driving on the streets and what have you. Wrong way, you name it. Cops are after him. He backs in the car. They're watching it. It's on the news. That day, my mom was not watching the news, but she had heard about it because we come from back up north in Salinas, we come from a small place. So everybody knows everybody. You know, and so the talk of the town was like, here's some crazy guy in the, you know, we don't know who, because they didn't know who it was at the time. That was my brother, running from the law. Anyways, he finally gets out of the vehicle because he crashes the vehicle, and the police unload on him. They actually shot him. He was shot, but he survived. He survived. Anyways, he was arrested, and, you know, he's incarcerated for the next 17 years. The fact that he backed up into the police officer's car, you know, is like a charge, huge. like attempted to kill him or something. I don't know, some of that regard. But the interesting thing about my younger brother Daryl, and he doesn't remember any of it.
That sucks. Can you imagine?
Because of, you know.
How many people does that happen to?
Oh, my goodness gracious. Many. I mean, so talk to him. I take his phone calls. He calls me. You know, he's such a good, it's crazy. You know, you guys are going to be like, what? He's a great person. He really, truly is. He understands what he's done. He understands that he's got to do his time. But drugs, right, for him, makes you do bad things. I could say drugs will take a good person and make them do bad things. So.
That's the truth.
Yeah.
And I definitely agree with that.
Yeah.
Not only in that capacity of people, you know, obviously you lose your inhibitions and and you get confused.
Mhm.
But there are a lot, and unfortunately, I've dealt with a lot of people that have been, addicted
Mhm.
in different capacities, and it's a big problem. It's a big problem, not
Yeah.
just from the street drugs, but on the pharmacy, on the
Prescription drugs.
on the prescription drug front.
Absolutely.
And it's not only because people have bad habits, right? Yes, people are being prescribed things, but sometimes the drugs that are being prescribed, now you get into another like powering up level, right? Where now you have people that are suffering from other. Now you could probably comment or relate to this, but like schizophrenia, like bipolar,
Mhm.
like all of these scenarios where people just lose their shit.
Mhm.
And before, because I would rather not take medication because I've seen how it's affected a lot of people. But there is a certain point where if somebody is suffering from some type of a mental issue, that this medication will calm that down. Now, when somebody's 5150, you can't talk sense to them, right?
Right.
So there has to be some kind of intervention.
Absolutely.
But so I don't know, that's a whole nother can of worms.
Yeah,
but
I think it's the difference between you taking a certain medication and then abusing certain medications.
Mhm.
You understand the extreme of it. Sometimes people go into taking prescription medication without realizing that it can be addictive. Not knowing until it's too late. Then they find themselves like, well, I just did it for chronic pain because I was feeling so much pain. I decided to continue to take all this medication, right? So they find themselves in the depth. And then sometimes people just do it because that's what makes them feel good. They don't want that, pain, and then that's that in a rabbit and a hat. There's so many different elements to any of that stuff, right? I mean, it's not just with drugs. I mean, anything you could be addicted to, right? Like, come on, man.
That's true.
Yeah. Anything in excess.
So I guess what we're talking about, again, breathe, right? That's kind of the answer because if you're wanting to take, okay, the other reason I wanted to bring that up is because it's not just the people that are addicted because they feel good or whatever. It's that, I know somebody that was given methadone as a therapy for another opium issue.
Yeah.
And what ended up happening is he was on methadone for 3 to 4 years or something like that. And that addiction was 50 times worse than he was ever addicted to any of the other prescription drugs that he was, taking. Methadone.
Yeah.
And then now this is prescribed by a doctor.
Yeah.
So how the hell are you going to get out of that mess?
I think that there's deeper issues too, because I think that goes to show we live in a society where you just want to put everything's quick. You know what? You don't feel that. Oh, let me fix it with a pill. Yeah. Right? Let me do that. You don't feel it. It's like we want everything instant. Guess what? It doesn't work that way. You got to work for stuff. Sometimes it takes a while. Yes, I believe that some people need medication. Don't get me wrong. My niece, she needs it. She's on one medication now. One medication.
Really?
Absolutely, yeah. And she has all those things. And there's, the ups and the downs and stuff like that. But you know what? We deal with it as it comes head on. So if I see she has a manic moment, I'm not telling her, hey, stop, don't do it. No, I allow her to be because that's what she's feeling. She's not hurting herself. She's not hurting anybody else. And she expresses herself, and then she's able to, you're coping with it. You're dealing with it. You're not putting a Band-Aid on it to stop it because emotions happen because you need to feel them. When you were tearing up a little bit ago, your first instinct is to go, let me stop this. Yeah. Why, man? Because as a society, we want people to, we feel uncomfortable with Scotty crying.
Right.
I feel comfortable with Jennifer
Absolutely.
crying. Bro, it is an absolute healing thing to cry because it's an emotion that you have. It's an emotion, you feel it, and then it's gone. So the grief, right? So I have my ups and downs. So I have my moments. There's days where I have better days than others, right? Yeah. Today I couldn't help but think about my mom. It is like, I feel it because I'm like, are you with me? I bet you're here with me. I hope whatever I say comes out of my mouth. I hope I do you right. No, it's and knowing that Mother's Day is coming up, and if anything, I think about that taking for granted. If your mom is around, right? Your mom is around. And you're talking about like, it's too late take today, because that's all we have today. Do you know one of my workshops I had, if today was your last day, what would you do, right?
Yeah.
And the common thread amongst most of the clients would be like, I tell my mom, I tell my husband, I tell my sister, right? It had to do with family. And I said, you guys see what's happening here? That you guys, along with all these other little, colorful things, right? But the common thing was I would say this to my family. And I said, really? And so I gave them my phone. I said, call. And they're like,
I wasn't expecting to be put on the spot.
No, because you want to know why? Because you don't know if you have tomorrow.
That's right.
So if you have your mama today, call her, tell her that you love her. Call whoever, whatever. I love you, Scotty, for having me here, right? Like, what a great opportunity, man.
This is, I didn't even need to be here, actually, because, wow, like, I think this was such a great experience. I have learned so much just listening. I think you have a bunch of gifts. I think that it's great that you decide, like Tony, great. That's how great, that you decided to come and share your story, because I know by doing that you are being a service, and I'm just excited that you decided to come on this platform to do that. But I think there's a lot in it for you to share your story and to share your insights with people. So now you have a business, and you're also doing an outreach program and helping those people that you're doing the outreach. What are they suffering from, or what is it that?
So it's substance abuse,
okay,
in addition to mental emotional issues as well. So hello, I got some serious experience and all that stuff, right? And basically, if it's anything, it's like I'm not teaching anybody anything. I'm just sharing exactly where I'm coming from and my thought process. I mean, there's not a one size fits all. Just like we're not all like, you're unique. There's no one else going to be you, Scotty.
Right.
You're one Scotty. That's it. That's it, right? So you're uniquely designed, right? And so with that said, we all have these little things that will work for us. And all I do is I just share. And if it works for you, cool. If it doesn't, no problem. I just shared some time with you, some space with you. This is freaking fantastic. The things that have worked for me, I didn't have like somebody going, do this, Jen, do this, do this. It's like a lot of things I had to figure out myself. Did this work for me? Let me try it. Let me try it. Yeah, that shit didn't work. Okay, that worked. Oh, you know what I'm saying? Like, it's like you got to figure out your own concoction, what works for you. So I just share. I have a lot of things that I got so much stuff in here you don't even know, right? So there's a time in my life where I wouldn't be so willing to share, to be so candid, so vulnerable, because this is a moment of vulnerability. How I got that gig at Akasha was the director there, Michael Riley, asked me. He just had a kind of like you, man, said, hey, you know what? He kind of observed me a little bit and thought, there's something about this, this gal. He didn't even know my story. And he asked if I would one day go and share what it's like to be Jen, what my secret is or whatever. Just share about myself, right? And I'm like, oh my Lord,
he doesn't know what he's getting into.
But this is right up my. Okay, well, let me do it. And so I did. I as soon as I said yes, I thought, oh gosh, I don't know why I said yes, but I'm like, what did I just do? I did, and I went and shared, just like I'm sharing right now, a little bit about where I come from, and when I did that, I thought, this is awesome. I'm never going to have to come back. They're never going to know. They don't even know who I am, right? No, that's not true, because they asked me to come back. They asked me to come back and keep sharing, keep sharing my insight, keep sharing and it's not just words, man. It's like, it's my experiences, and it's the things that I continue to work on, that I share. And it's not just about addiction, man. It's about being human, right? Mm-hmm. And living life, right? Mm-hmm. It's like the struggles that each and every one of us have every day,
ones that we still sit with. I mean, it's great to talk about victory, that we overcame this and overcame that,
Sure.
but we're still sitting with things that.
That's why.
Yes.
Yeah, that's why I wanted to bring up about my mom. So because one could think like, wow, she's overcome everything and everything's all great, and right? Because that's what they want to hear, a victory story, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like, oh my gosh, look at, and now everything's great. Well, listen, no, life's still happening, man. I just lost my mom, and I'm still going through it. But it's my choice how I maneuver through it. And if I choose to cry, right, and when people were asking me, "How you doing, Jen?" I didn't tell them bullshit. I said, "I'm doing freaking terrible, dude. I'm doing terrible today," because that's how I felt.
Yeah.
And I honored that because I honored myself. You get it?
Yeah.
So I accept myself. I love myself. That's it. And I come with like, you know, I have human feelings. Like that's that. That's that.
When my brother had passed away a couple days after that, I was getting choked up a lot. And there was a girl, Shirley, that has this nonprofit. It's called SAC, Simple Acts of Care and Kindness. And she said, "Scotty, it's okay if you cry." She said, "You know what the smallest verse in the Bible is? Jesus wept." And she said, when you cry, there are a lot of physiological benefits of doing it. You clear out your tear ducts, your eyes better, a lot of different things. It reduces your stress, cortisol.
Mm-hmm.
There are a lot of physiological things, and
it's fact.
Okay. Yes, it's fact.
It's fact. Yeah, it's not just like some whatever hoopla that there's just somebody just like whatever, some saying or anything. No, it's fact. It's fact. So.
Yeah. So I guess that I like where you're going with that. You're validating your emotions. You're not trying to block them off and saying it's not okay. It is okay because that's what is.
It is.
What is not okay is when you're saying it's not to not.
That's right.
If you have something, this is the real thing, and you're putting a cap on that, that's what's not okay.
Yeah, it's
but
not.
Over here,
it's weird how society is from time to time, where you can't show that. Only show this. Only show living my best life.
Right.
My best life is
vacation,
right. Living my best life is being like real and showing you like this is the deal. This is the real deal. And then I don't know. I'm being right. Talk about being.
Yeah.
Being authentic, being freaking real, not faking it, like not any of that stuff. Like you're feeling, and you realize too, even with emotions too, it's just a trippy thing too. Because think about when you're angry, like you're freaking angry, I'm mad, blah blah. Well, it only happens for a little bit anyways, and then it's gone, and there's the next one. Next emotion. So we are filled with all these emotions based off of our understanding what our thoughts are, and that's how we experience it in our body.
Yeah, how we filter those thoughts.
Yeah, it's a trip too. So it's like. It's all good. You're perfect the way you are. It's like each and every one of us, we're created a certain way. It's like that's just I think if you love you and you accept you, it makes it a lot easier.
Yeah.
It makes it a lot easier.
So and then, I think we're getting closer to the finish line, but as far as with the conversation, because I know you got other stuff to do and the day is, we got more things ahead of us, but it comes back to how we decide to think about, so it's our choice. So we have self-talk.
Yeah.
We all have self-talk. So if you're out there and you're listening and you're like, but I don't have self-talk. Well, you're talking to yourself while you're saying that. So you have self-talk too. Everybody has self-talk. Not everybody is aware that they have self-talk. And many times we are having conversations about us in our head. And again, it is carrying over from a lot of different things. It could be something that somebody said to you yesterday. It could be somebody that was in your life as a kid. And so you have self-talk. So be aware of those conversations. Be aware of things that you're saying. So that guy Jim Laird he put microphones on these athletes and he was telling them, hey, whatever you have in your mind, just say it out loud, and of course it's uncomfortable for a little bit, but then they got used to it. And then he recorded all of these different conversations that these athletes were having in their head. And then he drew connections of when they had this particular tone with themselves, this was typically a result. And so we have the choice of having a conscious conversation with us, saying that we're valid, that we are loved, that we are important, that it's okay for us to whatever it is, and I think that if you find yourself, if you're listening, if you can be aware of that self-talk and you hear yourself saying negative things, I'm stupid, I always make this mistake, I can't, when you hear that, it's okay. I'm not saying stop right tomorrow, like you're still going to have these words, but be aware of what's being said, and that's the first step.
Mm-hmm.
When you're being aware of what's said,
yeah.
And then you can reprogram yourself, and you have the choice. Just like I think that you have gone through several reprograms, and I think what is working for you.
And then some. I mean, I look forward to even more, right?
Absolutely.
Yeah, you're never at like that, this is it. Like, come on, man. We're all learning. We're all here. I say this about a rosebud and a rose, right? A rose is one better than the other? What do you think? Is one better than the other? The rosebud or the rose?
So, okay, the answer that most people would say is the rose.
Yeah, it's not sure. It's just a different stage. They're both the same. It's just a different stage of development. You see? It's a different stage of development. We're all at different stages of development. So when somebody's like, but we're still freaking roses, man. We're still freaking roses. Where are you at? We compare ourselves to others. It's so silly. It's like, you're just at a different stage. That's it. It's no big deal. I remember when I was there.
From where?
Huh?
And
the seed.
Yeah.
You gotta start from the seed, man. We gotta start from this freaking seed. Yeah.
And so the greatest oak began in the smallest seed, right? That's so, and you can draw that connection into everything, into our thoughts, into our actions, into our whatever comes aside from that. Like it all, you drop the pebble into the pond and it only begins with a small ripple, but at some point it will reach the furthest ends of the lake.
Yeah, that's true.
So
you say being aware of your thoughts. It's funny because a lot of things that you say, being aware, like you'll hear yourself. If you stop and you listen to yourself, you're like, dude, would you ever say that to your friend? Right. We would never say. We're terrible to ourselves. Like, you idiot, why'd you do that? Well, because I'm human. You know what I'm saying? Like, you would never say that. So listening, it's perfect what you just said. Like, be aware of your thoughts, because although it won't immediately change, if you're aware of those thoughts, at some point you can counteract it by going, hey, that's so not true. You're not an idiot. No, you did that because you were thinking of 1,000 other things that were going on. That's why you forgot that, silly goose. Get on with the show, right? Like, yeah, be your own best friend, man.
Yeah, I was thinking about, so on that Bevolve path that we're gonna head, that we're kind of still heading, but we're putting our things together. It's still kind of evolving. The Bevolve is evolving. Mm-hmm. A big aspect of that is thinking and how our thoughts affect us and being aware of our thoughts. But it is I'm trying to figure out the best way of, so affirmations, okay? Reprogramming. Mm-hmm. I think affirmations is a way for us to reprogram our negative thoughts. If we feel like we're not important, if we, just for an exercise, so if anybody's listening to this and you're having some type of issue mentally where you're saying this particular thing in a negative way, as an example, as an experiment, try this. Whatever that negative thought is, flip it. Write down the positive counterpart of that thought, like, I'm not important, I am extremely important. And for about 5 minutes in the morning or in the night, whatever time, literally take that affirmation and repeat it in your head. Write it down. Actually, write it down. Jim Laird also talks, and we've heard there's a lot of nuances whenever you write things down, how you basically ingest things a little bit better, because
that's true. How a lot of the clients write in their journal. It's very therapeutic. Very therapeutic. Sets it in stone. There it is. Something you can reference.
That's right. That's right.
Yeah.
And the time that you're taking in writing it is slower, right? So you have more time marinating, like you were. What were you marinating? So you were marinating something we were talking about.
Well, some things marinating. I'm marinating now.
But I'm trying to figure out, is there universal affirmations that, if we're going to put out a program to help people evolve, what type of affirmations are there universal ones that everyone can use, or is it all individual?
So. I think there are the basic ones, and then you add to it. So
what
it's
would
never
be the
like
basic, though?
Worthy. I think a lot of people don't think they're worthwhile. They're not worthy. They say that I'm not worthy, and that's so not true. I mean, I have talked with so many people, and that is like a common one. It's like this, if the more you talk about that, you realize like, well, you think that too. Well, how would you think that? You're like, because your thoughts about somebody else is completely different than what your thoughts about your own self are, right? So it's wild, but I think that's one of them. I think in addition to those basic ones, right, that, to each his own. A little extra something. We're uniquely designed, so you add to it.
Yeah.
Whatever that
Put the salt and the pepper.
Yes.
But you need the egg.
There you go.
We got the
whatever,
salt.
whatever. A little sugar, a little spice,
Everything nice.
Yeah.
Now, typically, I'll ask, if you have someplace, if somebody hears the podcast and they want to get feedback or input, but I'm not sure if this is something that would be something that you would want to put out there as far as like, but maybe you can do that through the treatment center. Akasha, you said?
Yes, Akasha Recovery. Yeah, it's actually in Cardiff by the Sea. It's a little drive away. Kind of Cardiff by the Sea, which is in like close to San Diego. So I drive an hour and a half to get there and an hour and a half back. But it's freaking awesome. I take that time to just like driving along and thinking about stuff. I listened to your podcast on my travels that way, just to see what you were all, what this is all about. So it's good. So what were you asking, like in terms of like getting in contact?
Yeah, well, I feel, but your business has nothing to do with what we're talking about here. No. So it's like doing, shower doors or, that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
So.
Reach out to Scotty. If you have something to say, is there a format where they could say like, hey man, this is a great podcast, or
we're still working on, we're still evolving
to that. Okay, well, whatever. Do you got something they can probably comment somehow, some way?
Yeah,
right?
totally.
Yeah. I believe it or not, I have no part of social media. I know I'm like so old school. And it's not because
maybe a reason you're so happy or that you're able to have that.
Perhaps, but yeah, I don't know. If you ever come across me, feel free to talk to me. I don't care. You really want to, if I had something great to say that you could resonate with, and you want additional, little something, contact Scotty. Scotty will contact me. I have no problem whatsoever. I'm here. I'm here, whatever anybody needs.
Cool. I like it. I have a couple people that I'm sure would want to have another interview with you, talking about your story, and, because we all have our people, and then some people have different people and more people, and so yeah.
It's fascinating. So how can you possibly get your life out in one podcast, right? Like you go like this, we hit certain things that obviously came out. There's so much more to it, It's like, I'll probably listen to them like, what the, okay, wait, what about that? What about, but just like getting to know people, right? It doesn't take 2 hours to find out who they are. You get what I'm saying? And a lot of times it takes some time. So everybody has these big stories, so it takes some time and getting to know one another. So
awesome. Yeah. Well, hopefully this is just the beginning, and that, in the future that there'll be other ways that our paths can cross, and people that we can help, and things that we can do to make the world a better place. And, thank you so much for coming to be my guest on this podcast.
Thank you for asking me. This has been awesome. This has been so great. Thank you so much, Scotty.
Awesome. Well, for any of you guys that are tuning in still, thank you for your attention, and hopefully you gleaned some interesting. God bless America. I did it again. That's $15. At least I catch myself. Thank you for tuning in, and If you have questions, reach out. If you have comments, reach out. If you are dealing with some kind of issue, join the crowd. We all are. Some people are dealing with it a little better than others, but either way, it's okay. And I love you, but I'm going to have to leave you. See you next time.